she's a friend, and she is somebody who's very into prison reform, and she instantly got involved, and the DA and the governor's office were flooded with a lot of reactions from people who had big opinions about the show. So I do think it led to something interesting, and more important to me, you know, when you make something, whether people love it or hate it is beside the point, but does it launch a conversation about something? And I think the show definitely did that in a way that Ian and I were very proud of that.
Absolutely. I want to start with this amazing cast because the Menendez brothers have, you know, sort of been in the public eye for, I guess, the last 35 years. I'm curious, what did you know or think you knew about this story when you came to the project, and what drew you to your roles? We'll go ahead and start with Coop.
Well, first I'm admiring all
Yes, I know, it's beautiful.
Here.
And the colors change. I just realized it was white in here earlier.
I love colors. I grew up in Woodland Hills in Calabasas, which is where the family first moved to when they moved to California, and so I found out. I heard about it. So I had known a lot about it, and I had watched some of the trial footage and testimony, and.
Wait, you would have been like 2 years old.
Yeah, no. I just.
Oh, you mean back in? Oh, I don't.
Yeah,
when
I was in high school and when I was older. Yeah, no. So yeah, and I was always just fascinated by it and moved by their stories and their testimony, and yeah, it's just a very interesting and fascinating story.
Mm. And for you?
I wasn't familiar with the story until I got the audition, and then once I caught that, you're trying to do an expedited research process, right? So you're trying to learn as much as you can as fast as possible so that you don't make a fool of yourself in the room once you audition for Ryan Murphy. But yeah, it was an ongoing journey in terms of what we were able to learn, and then marrying that with the scripts that were written for us.
I just want to pause before we get to the other actors because this is such a great cast of like faces we recognize, but also newer faces. And I wanted to ask your casting director as well, how many people did you have to see in order to find your Erik and your Lyle?
Well, Tiffany, on one of her names, we talked a lot about it, and it was funny when we were starting this process. I always knew that I wanted Javier Bardem and Chloe and Nathan Lane. I've worked with three of them for a long time. So when you go into a project, you plant your tent poles, right? And we did that. And then Tiffany and I had a long conversation about, I think the best way to go about the show is to find people that people really are sort of new people, fresh voices, and that's what we wanted with Lyle and Erik. So Tiffany worked particularly hard for I believe 6 months, something like that, just constant auditioning, and she should talk about her process. But I will say that it was we called it the Scarlett O'Hara search. It just went on and on and on, and it's that thing when you fall in love, you're like no, and then suddenly you hit their audition video, and I just instantly felt yes, those are our guys, they are the ones. And in a process like this, you have to have a lot of approvals, and a lot of people weigh in. And usually there's a very, when you do network and studio auditions, you usually bring 5 or 6 people per part, and you bring them in and you see them all, and then there's a conversation. But I didn't want to do that because I sort of felt like if I don't have these 2 guys, then I just don't want to make it. So for the final comeback, they showed up and it was only them.
Wow.
And they were sort of shocked, just sitting in a room looking around. And I just was open, and I said, I believe in you, and I think your work is amazing. And they auditioned several times. So I said, I believe in you, and I don't want you to feel that you have any competition, because for me and Tiffany and you don't.
Yeah.
So we just brought them into a room, and they met each other, I think, the first time, and they did 3 or 4 scenes together, and that was it. And we sent in our audition, and I believe I called them a couple hours later and said, Netflix saw it and loves you when you have the part. So it felt very special. Tiffany, you should talk.
Yes, and Tiffany, you didn't just have to find Scarlett O'Hara, you had to find 2 Scarlett O'Haras.
Yes, that was, and also we had scripts, so it was really clear what we needed on the talent department, right? Not just that these are based on real people and how they look, but like the talent. So we reached out to conservatories and, the theater scene, as well as, of course, agents, managers, and an open call, so we really tried to cover the gamut, and it doesn't surprise me we ended up with 2 brilliant, trained, professional actors who came in and took these parts, claimed them.
All right, give me a number. Are we talking, you saw 100 people, 200?
I think it was way
5
more than
million.
that. I think it was approximately 1.275 million.
Also for our audition, when their final audition wasn't even an audition, it was like a coronation. We gave them each of them had to do one of the most difficult scenes that they would have over the run of the series as part of their audition. So it was just very rewarding about how it worked. And then, also in the casting process for me and for Tiffany, there were just amazing, tremendous surprises like Ari's audition, for Leslie, and how she was just so spectacular and was so that person that it was like, okay, done. The casting process is so thrilling, and I'd known her working it. I always wanted to work with her, and so I was thrilled that I finally got to. It's like it's a very I always cast things in different ways, but this was a really fun thing to do, and I'm glad that Tiffany and I saw it the same way.
And going back to the actors, Javier, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is your first series role. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, thank you. And thank God I didn't do any audition for this. I should have never been hired. I'm so bad in auditions. I hear you, all the process, it's amazing what an actor has to go through in order to get a job.
Right.
How hard it is to be able to sustain the creativity when the pressure is so on. In the case of you guys, knowing that it could be life changer experience as it is, no, and even though being able to give the very best of yourselves, it always amazes me the fact that an actor can really perform in an audition. I've done some, but
At some point.
thank God I didn't do for this case. What was the question?
Oh, what did you know about this case, or sort of think you
Nothing.
knew?
I live in Spain. I don't know anything about it. I only know about tapas and paella. But I know Ryan. We were in Bali together. Eat, Pray, Love. Yeah. And he called me and I said, yeah, for sure. And then I read it and I said, fuck. José Menendez, what a guy. Okay. But I always felt protected, safe in his hands. And one thing that I know for sure is that he's an amazing artist, and he always does this thorough research on everything he does, and he surrounds himself with the very best that you can find on this industry. So creatively speaking, no doubt, it was more about, okay, how are we going to talk about these very delicate issues? And we sat down and he expressed to me how he considered it was the best way to show it and not show it. And I loved it, and I went full into the process.
Wow. And Chloe, for you, you've obviously worked with Ryan before, so I don't know if it's just an immediate yes when you see his name come up.
It wasn't immediate yes. Yes, he called. He kind of talked to me a bit about, the series and what he wanted to say with the series, and I said yes, and then I read the script, and I had the same reaction as Javier. I was like, fuck, can we do this? Can we show this? Do we want to? I was like, has Javier read these? And I think I called you back and was like, how are we going to do this? You're like, it's implied. I was like, oh, that's pretty heavily implying that. And then also, you know, knowing that I was going to have to play different versions of this woman,
Yeah.
was very exciting to me, very challenging as an actor, because normally you're searching for this one truth and you're playing the truth of this character, and here I'm playing different interpretations of her, and I thought that was going to be a really exciting kind of challenge. I've never had the opportunity to do that before, and I think also to show a mother that is, you know, struggling in the way that this woman did. I think you rarely see that on screen, and I know a lot of, you know, mothers, personally friends that are mothers and that you know are challenged by it and their relationships with their kids, and I thought that was just something that people don't really talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there was a lot there to mine.
You mentioned Nicholas and Cooper. You met at sort of he calls it a coronation, which I love more than the audition. When did the four of you meet? Because this family dynamic, it really feels lived in for all the good and bad that entails.
We had a rehearsal in the den for the scene, the murder scene, and yeah, they walked in and we hugged, and Ryan came and we all talked about what we wanted to do, and yeah, and then we just started rehearsing.
So you hugged and then you shot them.
Yeah.
And we rehearsed for like 2 days, then we shot that sequence over 4 days, and I mean, I have to say, just to Ryan, not to be kiss ass, but like he was so present and available for all of us all the time, and I really respect that, just because he's such a busy man, and like all the writers and the directors would call us, give us their numbers, like it was so much open dialogue, and everybody felt like very safe and very heard, and I found that really refreshing because I hadn't really I've done a lot of television. Seasoned professional, but I hadn't had that kind of access before, that kind of the stream of communication. I thought that was really an incredible thing that they provided us all with.
And Nathan, for you, you know, you're not only playing a real person, but someone who I think a lot of people remember pretty vividly. What did you know, or did you think you knew about Dominick Dunne in this story? And do you feel an extra pressure because it is a real person?
I knew a little about Dominick. I once got a note from him when I was doing a play on Broadway, and he had been there to see it, and he just thanked me for giving him such an entertaining evening.
Sorry, what show? I'm dying to know.
I have no idea. That's a long time ago. But I remember getting a note from Dominick Dunne, so maybe that was a sign, an omen. Yeah, so I knew that he wrote for Vanity Fair, and then just started doing research as you do, and I talked to his son Griffin, who was extremely helpful and gracious, and he had just finished writing this book, The Friday Afternoon Club, this memoir of his childhood, and so I got an advance copy of that, and that was very helpful, and certainly looking at, there's a lot of video of him being interviewed, but I remember saying, Griffin, there had been another book about Dominick that he wasn't happy with, and I said, well, how would you like to see your father portrayed? And he said, I just want people to know that trial, the trial of John Sweeney, who murdered his daughter, and how it changed his life forever, personally and professionally, and which is why he became such a passionate advocate for victims. And so when I was sent the first 4 scripts, and I thought, well, I feel like that's a huge arc for this character, and they really captured that. I mean, the writing was just exceptional, so that's a big part of it, when the writing is that good.
I mean, Dominick Dunne in and of himself is such a fascinating figure, but I love that you took the time to sort of dedicate some of the story to his backstory, which obviously affected him so deeply, and his work.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the Monster show is that it asks the question, who is the monster? How are monsters, are they made, are they born? And in this season in particular, there's many different types of monsters, and I thought, Dominique's killer and what he did to her and what he did to her family, that was a different sort of vein we could talk about, and how monstrous behaviors really tear apart families. The family was always at the center of what we were trying to write about this season. So yeah, it's kind of, interesting. We just 2 days ago started working on season 3, which is about Ed Gein, and there's many different monsters in society in that story as well. So that's the fascinating thing to write to, about cultural monstrosities, I think.
Ari, I have such vivid memories of the first trial and of Leslie. She had such a specific look and sound and feel. How much do you feel, behold, you don't want to do an imitation, but like you very much capture her spirit, you sort of channel that, but you also do look and sound like her. How important was it to you to have both those things?
Well, it's funny to hear I look and sound like her. I'm like,
In this,
"Oh,
thanks for being a wonderful artist.
oh yeah. No, I mean, her look is so iconic. Her voice is so iconic. She's got, she's really got a thing. And so yeah, I watched and read, and I think what was so extraordinary about these scripts and the writing, the first thing I ever read, and really the only things I read before I auditioned were 2 scenes. It was the scene when you first meet her at the adoption agency, and the first time she meets Erik. And Ryan and Ian and all the writers are so extraordinary, and to see that this is how they were introducing her, talking about adopting a child and what happens when kids don't get the love that they need. It was this total other insight and insight into her that was another level besides her sort of, brassy nuclear strength pain in the ass, I think, as the LA Times once called her. So I just really wanted to honor that, the love that I think she had, and the passion and fairness for the system, and that was so much of how she grew up, and so much of her history, and listening to her book through her own voice. She did the audiobook and would sleep with that, and really wanted to just squeeze all the juice I could, because also, as Javier says, it's like, it's hard to be an actor and pound the pavement and auditions and all that stuff, and I knew that Ryan was just giving me such an extraordinary gift with Leslie, and I just wanted to try to get her as much as I could. So.
Before we move on to talking about these amazing crafts, I just want to touch on episode 5 is primarily What more do I need to say? Such a powerhouse episode. It's primarily the two of you. I mean it as a compliment when I say it feels like a play, because we never.
Yeah, no, it's a play.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
We rehearsed it like a play.
Really? I mean, but when you found out it was going to be all in one take like that, were you excited or terrified or all of the above?
But yeah, everything. It's written that way in the script. Before there's any dialogue, it talks about how it's one shot. So I knew when I read it that it was going to be that way, and I was so happy that it ended up being that way, because things can change, writing changes, and we get to a certain point and we're like, no, we're going to actually go this way, but it stayed the same way the whole time. The script never changed, and we were always going to do it that way.
Wow. How long did it take to shoot?
Well, we wrote it that way. When we were writing it, we knew it was sort of dramaturgically, it was Erik's talking about his past, specifically the very famous hurt man quote that he had. So when we were writing it, it was written the first time, I think, much more traditionally. And when I read it, I said to Ian, I think we should do something that is terrifying here. And I think, and I knew that Cooper and Ari were very talented, but I hadn't seen them really do anything when we were finishing it. So I said, let's do it all in one shot. So we built, and we knew that very early on, so we built a special set that could have a camera that could literally be moving for like 30 minutes. We did special lighting tests, and we ended up, I think, rehearsing it 3 days in a row, because not only do you have to rehearse it, but you have to have your director and your director of photography know where the camera needs to be for certain words, and with the camera operators practice that move several times so that you could end on that excruciating close-up that we did. So we rehearsed it for 3 days.
No, we only did. No, we did one rehearsal.
We did one rehearsal.
Well, the DP.
The DP did it.
We
gotcha,
rehearsed it in the room trying to read it.
We did one rehearsal.
But that was also maybe by design, because
Yeah.
I knew they were
Yes.
very excited. But we shot it 10 times
Yeah.
over 3 days. Or 2 days.
2 days.
8 full times over 2 days.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
And as I recall, you never dropped a line.
I was gonna ask, you don't want to be the person who, minute 37 suddenly flubs a line.
No, you do not. As the person off camera, I was like, if I miss a line, I will literally end it all right now. And this is crazy. But no, what he did was just the most extraordinary thing ever.
It was also, lastly, I'll say about that, it was also very rewarding, because I felt that by the last time that we did it, I mean, I don't want to speak for Cooper or Ari, but I think you guys kind of felt that you figured it out by that last take, and that's the one we used, correct?
Really?
Yeah, I think the second day, all 4 of the takes felt new and different and interesting and held different moments, and we found new stuff, and I think I was happy with any of the takes from the second day, if they chose, whichever one they chose, and I didn't know which one it was after I watched it for the first time, and then you called me and told me it was the last one.
Yeah. I feel bad that they only had 1 day to rehearse it.
No,
Well, you want to keep it fresh, too,
We-
to a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would have done it more, but we did it, and then Michael didn't want to. He wanted it to just let us.
Cooper was also too busy acting.
Yeah. Well, that must have been exhausting, too. Did you go home those days and just collapse?
Well,
We were so excited, because it felt, I
Yeah.
mean, from what I witnessed, everybody who made that, the whole show, but that episode, was so thrilled with the theatricality of it and the goal of, when you're doing something like that, everybody has to be communicating and be on the same page. And it's like being in an athletic event where you win, you're like, we did it. Like, it felt like a group.
We went to Ari's porch and had wine
Yeah.
and ate sushi.
I
Nice.
spent a lot of time on my porch,
Yeah.
Cooper and I. We lived 5 minutes apart from each other while we were shooting, so there was a lot of
porch
pre-games and
games.
post-games. We might have even driven together that day and then got in the pool and had the wine, had the sugar fish.
I was jokingly gonna ask you about sugarfish. By the way, you say the camera's not on you, which is honestly not true, because you can still see everything you're doing and you can hear it in your voice. And I just want to, ask Cooper, like, could you have done this without her? I mean, like, what a great scene
No,
partner.
there's absolutely no way I could have done it without her. She held such beautiful space for me, and she became Leslie,
Mhm.
which I think allowed me to be Eric, and I mean, I'm the only person who got to see her performance.
Yeah,
Which
every single
feel-
time too. She was there for you.
I feel so lucky
That's
that I got to
amazing.
witness that. You're extraordinary, and I love you very much.
I do want to ask our below the line artist, because I was born in redacted, but I sort of grew up during this time, and I cannot believe how well you captured this era. It's really incredible. It's such a time capsule of the 80s and the 90s. Sort of as the heads of your respective departments, how did you go about capturing the essence of the time period and accurately depict it on screen?
Well, for me, it's a lot of research. And I really love to go to bookstores and scour any book that I can find that inspires me. I also grabbed the old Los Angeles magazine covers to look at those. And I lived in the 80s as well. I didn't live in LA, but I lived in the 80s, so I drew from life experience. And with my team, we put together the world that is the Menendez.
Mm. I mean, and Ryan, how much do you, I mean, I know you have your fingers in everything, but are there massive discussions with,
yeah.
with everyone together so
Yeah.
you're all on the same page?
Whenever I do anything, I always have like a general first concept meeting with all of the department heads, pretty much on every episode, and we talk about, what I like to do is talk about, this is the reason why I want to make this is what it's about, and then this is the tone of it, and this is the feeling of it and the light of it, and here are reference photos and movies I'm interested in, photography I'm interested in, so people have a lot of visual clues, but then the fun of it for me is working with, these world-class artists and saying, now you interpret it the way you want to. So everybody has a lot of agency to come and try things and style things. It was very interesting when we were coming up with the visual language of this, because I had a color in mind, and sometimes I like to do things like, okay, this season the color is X, and it does nothing but inspire you to think of it. So this season, this happened right when I moved to LA. I was 1989. I was a journalist, and I had lived here for 2 months, and then this incident happened. So for me, it was very formative. I was a reporter then. And I don't know. I like to give people a key insight as to why I want to make something and let them do it.
Yeah, this season was blue.
I was gonna
And
ask.
so Dahmer was a dingy yellow. And so Brian,
Yeah.
he talked about it exactly and said, this color's gonna be blue. And so it's a great starting point for us to kind of build off of as kind of a base. And so it's a kind of a game on how to incorporate it and carry it through the entire show.
And I want to talk about the hair and the makeup and the costumes, because they're so accurate. I don't know if you were able to, source actual things from that time period, or if you had to kind of create some from scratch.
Well, first of all, yes, we sourced a lot, and because we live in Los Angeles, there's a lot of people and dealers here who are geared to the film industry. And I'm glad that you think that much of the clothing, because Ryan always, from the get-go, I can tell you my first knowing of Ryan, Blue Skies, LA, I wanted to look like LA and the blue skies and all the colors and the color blocking, and then I wanted desaturated, and that for me told me the story. Then I knew. And also because I was a fashion student in the 80s, and the 80s is a very complex decade. We have this joke about the 80s, but the 80s is not a joke. It was the birth of a lot of design, a lot of Japanese design, a lot of different cultural, and LA, I'm being from England, LA is a little different for me because I didn't experience the 80s in LA. So I also like to do a lot of research and books and things. I stole some from Matthew. We also have a producer called Lou, who has been with Ryan since the very beginning, and actually I PA'd on Ryan's very first popular pilot. But that I knew that from that was the information, and creativity is so big that you want a parameter, and that was the starting point, and I understood that from the big blue skies and selling LA to somebody who didn't live in LA, what that meant to the desaturation, and when we get to the prison and after the murders. And then I had total fun, and then I had fun. Because first of all, I've got a family who are actually way better looking.
What, you meant your family? I was like, damn.
I'm working with a family who were way better looking. And this is my 5th show with Ryan, and everything's it's real and then elevated. And so actually, I had so many costumes, and I had such a good time, and I'm very, very grateful, and thank you.
I would be so tempted to keep so many things from this show. You don't have to tell us if you did, but just nod once.
I don't want to keep anything. I'm on another show.
At the end of the show, you're kind of ready to walk away from it.
Yeah.
I took something.
I was going to tell us what you took.
Paula gave me some stuff.
Oh yeah, what was it?
I got my Cavarici pants from episode 2.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Good choice.
I stole a tennis bag too. I'm sorry.
Karen, this is such a it's a weird column, but what I want to say, like, I think many people agree with me. Nothing takes you out of a show faster than a bad wig, and these are spectacular. But in addition to that, you had this incredible task of making Lyle's wig, which says so much about that character and really does have to look good, but also look like a wig. It's like it's so meta. The more that I think about it, where did you even begin?
Well, I did a lot of research.
Oh, the mic.
I did a lot of the research on the Menendez boys. I remember because I grew up in the 80s in LA, and we had a wig made for him, and then we had a side piece and a top piece. But the wig didn't really work because with Ryan's keen eye, he didn't want it to look over the top and too 80s because you can go so. It could get so bad really fast because the 80s, I went to beauty school in the 80s and the 80s was not gray hair. But we ended up using, of course, the toupee and the side piece for his bald reveal. Yeah, it was just, doing camera tests and.
And Lyle's wig was always a character.
Yes,
it was
really
character.
is.
It was such a character. It was so about his vulnerability and the father's point of view. So we spent a lot of time working at getting that right, and working with Nicholas too, so that he felt comfortable. And it was that was like a supporting character. In the show.
Yeah. How much does it add pressure on hair and on makeup? To that you're portraying these real people. Because you have to obviously take that into consideration, but also we don't necessarily need like a carbon copy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was really just whatever worked for the actor to make them look the part, but not too over the top. And I find with putting wigs on people, sometimes if they're too perfect and they don't move, they look like a wig.
Yeah.
So luckily for the 80s, like with Leslie's, that wig it became her. Like she just wore it and it looked like it was her hair to me.
I mean, there really is no Leslie without.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And Ari she left her wig.
Sure did.
And Miho, for you, do you have discussions with the actors about, because actors come to things and they know these characters better than anyone lots of times. So I think of it as a collaboration, but sort of curious where you begin.
Yeah, definitely. We'd like to hear what they have in mind, but also coming to this project, I was so excited for Ryan because it's not very many occasions that we get to work for the project that they really care about him.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time, but it's not the most important thing. And so for me to bring in a little bit of a highlight in the sort of light catching, these little things that we get to do in play and make them look like having stars, and it's that contrasted later time when they're in prison. It really doing not so much fun. There's so much fun doing it.
It's okay to have fun.
It was really great creative challenge.
Yeah.
And then Javier's book was when I saw that day of transformation, we had an eyebrow cover because your eyebrows is such a significant look, and then to hide that, and then here it is, and then when Ryan came into the makeup trailer, saw the makeup test, the magic happened
Yeah.
that day, and then that was. I had a great team to work with, and Sabrina Wilson, Michael Neelas, such a talented makeup artist to bring that game to bring things to the table, and I'm grateful that we got to do the whole project.
Can I just also want to say that we're really grateful. You can, probably get an understanding of their personalities a little
Yeah.
bit. And every morning, in dealing with the subject matter that we were, I'm sure Nicholas and Cooper can speak on this even further. Just to be with these women that were so warm and welcoming and took care of us in such a gentle way, that was really incredible. So thank you, ladies.
Yeah, they really did. Miho not only put my makeup on, but she also would do Reiki on me.
You're kidding?
Yes.
It's amazing.
And she would give me messages and words, and you know, even sometimes if it was an emotional scene, when she would come and touch me up, and she would be done, but maybe the cameras were still working, I would just hold her hand, and she would hold me, and we would close our eyes, and she would give me this like energy, and she was such. Both of them were such like they became mothers to me, and held so much beautiful space, and really I couldn't have done it without both of them. So thank you both.
And as actors, how much does it help? Because you can do so much research into your character and your role, but then you step on set and there's these amazing sets that look like they're right, you know, out of the time period. You put on those costumes, you put on that hair and makeup. Does that sort of help lock the final piece in for you?
It was eerie for me, like growing up in the 80s, like the sense memory of some of those like electronics and stuff. I was like, oh, I can't, oh, Amtron's coming up now. Going for this telephone or TV or whatever it was.
Well, we were. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say we were talking about this earlier that I had this scene, a lunch scene at Spago, and they recreated the entire restaurant at the original location, down to plates and the napkins and the chairs, the mesh. What were they? Metal mesh. Yeah, it was astonishing, and yeah, it was great to be back in the 80s, you know, without the cocaine.
I was just gonna say, knowing the way that the house looked from, you know, research and pictures, and that was really exciting to walk in there for the first time and see the den and just the, you know, the foyer, and I loved having Erik's room and seeing, it felt like it was my home, and it was for like 6 months.
Yes.
It was so beautiful. I was so impressed every day.
Sorry, did you?
I was going to add something. For Erik's room, my mother-in-law's house was for sale in Louisiana, and there were these curtains from the 80s that she had, and I loved them, and they looked like a Nagel print. And so I contacted the owner and had them shipped, and they were in his room. And that actually started the design of that whole room from those curtains.
Wow. It's nice to hear about a son-in-law who likes his mother-in-law too.
Yes.
Javier, what was it like for you? Because it's what's so great about this is you do look very different, but I don't think about you wearing makeup. But the first time you sort of saw the transformation, I mean, it kind of freaked you out?
Me?
Yeah.
I freak out myself many times when I see my hair. It's something very useful. The whole team, we were talking before about the show is very dramatic and speaks about many very heavy issues, but the way it was made was with lots of love, attention, care, a lot of work. But I think everybody was taking very good care of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes this experience very special and unique, because I think we went deep into a lot of heavy stuff, but we came back safe because we were surrounded by beautiful people doing things with lots of love. And if there is something that the show shows, is that the lack of love can really perpetuate pain for generations. So, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but my look. I was obsessed with the eyebrows because I think his eyes were very important, and when I saw the pictures of him, these thin eyebrows were very important in that face. That was very kind of uncomfortable to look at, and Ryan was open to try it, and we did it, and it worked out. He did a great job.
I know it's acting. I also know that sometimes your body doesn't know the difference when you're traumatizing it and doing these scenes, and specifically for Nicholas and Cooper. Was it ever challenging at the end of the day to sort of go home and really? Did you have a way to sort of prepare for the really intense scenes?
Yeah, your central nervous system doesn't really know the difference, right?